Adam Case. I'm in grade 3, age 9. Well, and I have annoying parents. I have a lot of friends.
Adam's visual impairment comes from a birth defect. He was born without eyelids, uppers or lowers, or without a bridge to his nose. Because he had no eyelids, his eyes then became really infected, grossly abrased, and that's how he lost his sight. He had to have 2 corneal transplants, one when he was 5 months old and one when he was 6 months old, to give him what sight he has today, which is about 10%. First of all, I should explain that Adam was an only child, so I have no reference. So I thought the things that he did were the things that every kid did. I didn't realize that he was doing things that were probably a little bit more advanced for his age than we were aware of. For instance, Adam was about 2.5 at the time, and he was doing number sequences. He would, like, if you said 2, 4, 6, he would say 8, 10, 12. And he was also, if you gave him your initials, he would give you the corresponding numbers in the alphabet if A was 1 and Z was 26. I have an aunt who's a primary school teacher who came to visit us from Ontario. And so she sort of said to me at that time, this kid's gifted. And I went, yeah, right. I thought, well, maybe you're just saying that. But then when he was, the year prior to going to school, was the first time he came in contact with a visual itinerant teacher who also had a background in the education of gifted children. So immediately, she came to my house. Adam was 4 years old. He was watching the Weather Network. And she said, does he do that all the time? And I said, yes, that's all he watches. And so immediately she said, there's something going on here that you're really not aware of. He's obviously a very gifted child.
Now, Adam Case, are you ready for your book talk?
I have it right here.
Okay, come on up then.
We have 28 students, and in addition to Adam's exceptionalities, we have 2 cognitively delayed children, we have 2 ADHD children, and we have 3 or 4 others, 3, who are on individualized programs for their academic needs. And, it makes quite an assortment of kids and quite a, variation of needs and abilities.
It's about this guy named Stubborn Newell and his brother-in-law George Hull. They tried to fool a valley out of the small town of Cardiff, New York, into thinking that they found a fossil of a race of giants that once walked the earth.
I have yet to hear a child in this classroom say that Adam is any different than they are. Nobody has ever said anything about his visual disability. But if I were to ask them, I think, to describe Adam or tell something they really noticed about Adam, they would very likely say Adam is very smart.
Sculptor to make a duplicate of the Cardiff giant. After a while, they discovered that the Cardiff giant was a fake.
That's one good thing about this class. We have so many differences, so many exceptionalities in other areas as well. But it doesn't seem to make a difference. They all accept each other, and it's great, and I'm glad they do.
Thinking Caps for Valentine's Day.
If I'm doing board work or demonstrating something, Adam will automatically leave his seat and come up and get as close to it as he can. If I'm showing something on TV or on a video or some board work or chart work, without being told, he knows that he can come up and get as close as he possibly can to that activity. And if there's an activity that requires a lot of movement around the classroom for safety reasons, I will usually let Adam go first or not get caught up in too much, confusion.
Isn't that an interesting way to do your Valentine's? Be quiet and start your questions now.
Adam receives help from Mrs. Suvak. She's the itinerant teacher for the visually impaired. She spends 2 afternoons a week with Adam and works a lot on developing independence and those kind of skills.
The job of a visual itinerant is really in 3 parts. First, we work with the student. We do assessment and then direct training with the student. Then we also work with the teacher so that we provide the teacher with the information that they need and, so that they can easily put the student into the classroom. Third, we work with the parents so that the family is involved in both the education of the child, also so that the family is comfortable with the child's abilities and their needs. The report from Adam's last visual assessment indicates he sees at 1 foot what most of us see at 70. He uses this vision well, but he has many needs at school and at home.
Miss Suvak is unique. She's become confident for both ourselves and Adam. Adam tells her things that he would never tell us. She's a resource. She's incredibly knowledgeable. She makes everything fun for Adam and he learns a great deal. So I find her incredibly unique, refreshing, very progressive, and I just love her to death, and so does Adam. Adam suffers a great deal from photosensitivity, and while that seems to be decreasing, it still affects his outside activities. In August, I said to Trish, help! I've promised Adam that he can walk back to school. Please make this happen. So Trish started every day coming in the morning and picking up Adam and walking him over to school. And then in the afternoons, walking him back from school.
Bye, see you later.
The idea was that eventually I pull back more and more and more until he's doing it completely independently. Our concern was crossing streets because that's dangerous. Adam was very nervous at the very beginning, and we had the very good fortune that he expressed his concerns in his journal. And because I worked closely with the school, when they saw that in his journal, they let me know. And so we worked to make it very, very comfortable.
He went from this kind of like moping along to really was interested in this was a good thing, right? And he became very independent about it. Almost too independent because the very first day he became solo, I waited. He got out of school 2:35. 2:45 came, 2:50. 3 o'clock, still no Adam. I thought, oh God, where's he gone? And I just get in my coat and my boots on. And the phone rings. This is him. He says, hello, Mom. I'm over to Nick's house. That pretty much sums up how independent he is. He does pretty much what he wants when he feels like he can do it. Adam's independence does bring a lot of mixed feelings because you strive and strive and strive for him to be so self-assured and so independent that he can take care of himself, or to an extent, take care of him as much as any other 9-year-old, take care of himself, as well as have enough self-esteem that he can ward off any comments or things that happen as a result of being visually impaired, or even enriched, because that puts you on a different playing field too. So you strive to get him to be independent, and then he becomes independent, and you think, oh no, he's going to do that by himself. He really can't do that by himself. I just know he can't do that by himself. The first day he left here and walked to school on his own, my heart was in my throat. You haven't met my husband, but he said he wondered how many places he could hide himself between here and school. And he wondered how he could do it because he was so nervous about Adam. I'm sure that there's a lot of parents who have kids who don't have a disability who also go through the same thing. So just sort of hold your breath and hope that everything works out okay. Adam uses some aids, not as much as he used to because he doesn't like them. He says, and I quote, "It slows me down." Because he used to have a, I don't know, what happens, CCTV. They put the books down on the this TV screen and move it around, and it comes, or I should say, it comes up on the TV screen, and they can enlarge to see the print. He had one of those. Used to slow him down. He's got magnifying glasses even in his room, in his bedroom here. He won't use them because they slow him down. Didn't like Braille. Was too slow to learn. So there are all these things that he has had or has had an opportunity to, but personally he doesn't like them. I think eventually he'll have no other choice but to start to use them. Enrichment is kind of varied. Right now, the enrichment has been coming from his own homeroom teacher, Mrs. Welsh, and she's doing very well. What she's doing is consulting the enrichment program from the school board, and then taking some of their recommendations and adding a few of her own ideas, and coming up with a slightly accelerated program for Adam within the math curriculum, which is, of course, his, the area in which he's most gifted.
There are children who are twice exceptional. It is not a common thing.
And I think someone said, finally, a birthday party where you can learn something.
I think that whenever you work with any children, you have to look at the totality of the child. Adam has a visual impairment. He is also a very gifted child. One of the things that I do with him is I try to build into my program variety. I try to build into the program a bit of challenge, and I try to have him incorporate his interests into the program so that not only am I looking at his visual needs, but if I can hit the other needs at the same time, that's the aim.
Oh, please.
Oh, please, wow.
You know what I was doing to those guys over there?
Wow.
There is no question that working with Adam is a great deal of fun and a marvelous challenge. He loves to imagine. He loves to build stories or build scenarios. So some of the things we've done, we looked at fractions, and I have a fraction set, so we made a large number of pizzas with the various colored fractions, and we had orange pizza, and we had chocolate pizza, and then we would gobble these up. With our mobility lessons, Adam is a strong fan of Carmen Sandiego, so we ended up finding out that Carmen Sandiego really has a headquarters here at Morris Academy. Adam and I would search for Carmen Sandiego, who always seemed to be stealing something One day she was going to take all the bells so we wouldn't have any lunch, for example. And we would go through the building looking for Carmen, or we might go outside looking for Carmen. And just at the nick of time, we always seemed to find her.
Let me read it, you guys.
In typing, which I think is probably one of the most boring things to learn,
Yes.
we have played The Price is Typed. That's a game in which for each line of typing, you have earned a certain amount of money, which we keep on a graph and have a running total each week. Who knows what you can buy with that $1 million that you're aiming for at the end of the year.
Because your eyes are in the way I can't see.
We start our sessions this year. We are flying on the good ship Zephyr. It's a spaceship that travels to all sorts of places.
Zephyr from Mission Control. You and your navigator need to do the following. Listen to your navigator's story and answer the questions she asks. Get prepared for the ship exploration by exploring other ships. To continue your dictionary,
At the beginning of each
you can
session,
never tell
Adam
when the
has a
translation
letter
may
from
be
Mission
necessary
Control.
on the planet.
Mission Control gives Adam the tasks that he must accomplish in the course of the lesson.
Good luck with the mission, Captain. We look forward to your success. Mission Control completed.
Ricardo dropped his fishing line over the railing of the pier and watched the bait disappear into the dark water. Children who don't see very well do need to be able to remember and to extrapolate information from the things that they hear. In Adam's case, we've been doing paragraphs that he hears, and then we ask him questions about it to hone those skills a little bit more, or to help him so that eventually he may be able to pull information out of what he hears a little more easily. When Ricardo was sitting on the pier, wondering if anything was ever going to happen, how come he didn't really know that all this had happened below him? What had happened?
He was inexperienced.
He was inexperienced. That's a good reason. What else? Do you think that
He wasn't really concentrating.
he wasn't really concentrating? Yeah. And
And he just sat around the fishing line, not really knowing what he's doing.
and what else? What happened to the bait?
It got ripped and he didn't even notice.
Exactly. It got ripped from the hook. So if it got ripped from the hook, do you think nothing ever moved with his line, did it?
No, because he didn't know that the fish was coming.
All right, and you are correct. That's $50,000.
Three is the funniest one in here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You want to mark it? $50,000. I mean, mark off number 1, and you've got $50,000. Okay. Are you ready? Shapes. Try to figure the shape sizes. Just slide it across, seeing how much information you can get. Do the trick along the bottom, do the trick along the top. This year, Adam is beginning to learn Braille by touch, and we're going to combine that with his knowledge of the Braille alphabet eventually. But we're just starting him out on the tactile sensations needed to read Braille on his own.
Second.
Second? We'll mark it and see.
No, first.
Okay. All right, mark the second one, and then I'm going to show you how to go back and do the second, look at it again.
Right.
Right. 14,000. Huh. What's next? Dictionary. Okay. Now,
There's 9 words. We're doing 4 more today.
4 more today. What is the next word?
I think it's the final. What is it? Oh yeah, Ewans.
So, what does units mean?
It means if there are 3 people in your group instead of 1.
Okay. Adam and I have been laughing about the 8-year-old words that he has come up with in the last few weeks, and so I decided that a good way to use those words was to make a dictionary of them. So that way he's practicing his typing, and he's also having a lot of fun with it at the same
How
time.
do you like Now let's do a full dictionary recap.
Okay, a full dictionary recap.
Yumta. And then did you call people when you were going somewhere? I, a word you use when you are surprised. Used to go. A word meaning you used to do something. You're not here. A word that drives away trouble. Okay, slow down. An even better word to drive with all sensuous. A word means a girl is really sexy. I like sensuous.
I know, you really do like that word.
Yeah, it's for the grade 8-year-olds who are in love. Did you eat it? It means you ask someone it means to ask someone have they eaten yet. Nah, dude, it's a judo word meaning you won a match. You win a word meaning there's 3 people in your group.
Very good.
Like it?
Yeah, I do. So, how much money do you have?
Add it up.
Add it up.
Super good.
You've done it.
In the Big Kahuna,
between
we
December
simply
and
have a
February.
scorecard.
Now, what's our first
We
column?
keep track of the date. We keep track of the amount of money he's earned through his listening, how much money he's earned through his mobility, how much money he's used through his visual program, and in this case we're using Braille and Vision at the same time, and how much money he has in total.
64,000.
And how much did you have yesterday?
44,444,000.
Okay.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the engines are fired up. You've got to get... Now, there we go. Are you ready? You've got to get the blue force. Blue team. Okay.
We already battled the orange force. Oh, man.
Oh, warp speed.
At the end of our sessions, we have the flight of the Zephyr, and in this case, I've set up a design with the picture program, and he flies around to various planets, or he flies around the stars, or he visits aliens, and he's using his eye-hand coordination to do that and using his mouse skills. So we may... Well, at Christmas, we saved this odd fellow who was taking a test flight that had 8 reindeer. Thank goodness we got him because the aliens were about to attack this unidentified flying object. Other days, we simply saved the world.
You're not on target now.
What does it look like? I'll try out.
What does it look like? Today it's sort of a mishmash, isn't it?
Kind of like a cat.
Okay. And that is it. Is that the last of your mission, Captain?
Yeah, Navigate.
That's it. You are done.
That in your homework book in the front basket.
Student assistant program is wonderful. It's a great thing, and Adam benefits from having Mrs. Downer, who's a student assistant this year.
That goes up where?
Adam's kind of unique because
Story in the top, Adam.
sometimes people forget how limited his sight is and what he can do simply because of his intelligence, because he's found ways to work around it. So it's nice to know that there's someone there who is first and foremost aware that he's impaired.
We work really closely together and monitor Adam's progress. She sort of helps him get organized when he comes in the morning. So the student assistant will sort of say, well, now, Adam, take the things out of your desk that you need, take the things out of your backpack that you need, and put away what you don't need. And sort of because he gets overwhelmed when all of this clutter is on his desk.
Mrs. Walsh said you had to do this page here, Adam. 161. I gotta move you for 1 second. Turn around. Get in your seat.
Look what's in my pouch over there. In there.
Where's your pencil this morning? Where's the one you were using before I came in here?
His biggest problem, I think, that I see with his disability is his writing, because he can't, not that his coordination is poor, but he has to have his eyes so close to the paper. So she helps him with written work to keep things in the right place on the paper and try to get it as straight as he can on the line.
Adam had his student assistant full-time, and then someone else needed someone, so he had to go half-time. And again, he's often the one that's chosen because his giftedness seems to take from the fact that he's visually impaired, which is good in a great deal of ways, but sometimes it works against him.
603.
Where do I put 6?
Pardon me?
Where do I put 6?
Okay, we're still on this line right here. 603.
I find that, yes, he's not as much on task when she's not here in the afternoon because I can't be constantly by his side.
I'm going to finish the rest for homework tonight.
Yeah.
Back what's in your book bag.
Okay. Yoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. I gotta put the
When he first went to school this year, it was really difficult. Adam was being left behind, and the reason why he was being left behind was because it was very warm outside. The kids were running and jumping and playing on their recess times and their dinner breaks. There were new kids in the class that really didn't know Adam, and he was being secluded as opposed to included.
Markers or leads if you want. You can put other things on it. There's one way of getting.
So I would ask him what he was doing on his dinner break, and he would say standing up alone or staying by himself. He said that at supper table one night, I asked him how school was, and he said he didn't like being visually impaired. He said he didn't like it because everybody left him behind.
No.
You have blue, white glue.
That's what I'm looking for.
Basically what was happening was he would eat his lunch, and by the time he had his lunch gone, the other kids would already have been gone outside to play, and he wouldn't be able to find them. And he'd wander around the schoolyard and looking for them, and of course wouldn't find them. The bell would ring, he'd go back inside, and he'd spend the entire lunchtime alone. Either that or he'd go to where he thought he might find them and just stand up there by himself until hopefully someone showed up. Often they didn't. So it was really rough on him. He was really lonely, really, really sad.
You're wondering about this? This is the bottom side of it. Look, see, the blue on the back here.
The part that's roughly?
It's a little bit rough, rougher than the other. So you put it all around the back and lay it on. Just put it on my desk. Okay?
It was rough on us because, well, we felt really bad, but you didn't want to be. You know, you can't make kids play with your child. That's kind of ridiculous. But it was really hard for us not to try and fix it. And I phoned Trish many nights in that couple-week period and, you know, sounded off about how upset I was. What could I do? How can I fix this without being, you know, the terrible meddlesome mother? And she listened, you know, and she gave advice and she helped me out quite a bit. Trish gave me some insight into it and what to expect, and she also gave me some information that I could read, some literature and stuff, that basically says that, you know, there's a time in every visually impaired person's life that it smacks them in the face that they're different than everybody else. for a long time they're going along their coast along, particularly someone who's enriched, who can get by that extra bit. So he's going along and everything is great. Life is wonderful. And then all of a sudden he's smacked in the face with the fact that he's blind and that he can't do what everybody else does.
If we get our holders finished today, you can bring your Valentine's tomorrow, okay? When that's cleaned up, Adam, I want you to color the heart, okay? And cut it out and stick it on your Valentine holder.
All right.
Please, and I don't want to have to say it again.
Now if you ask Adam where he goes in the mornings, he'll tell you he goes to their club. And I said, I sort of got to take the blame for this club thing, because I told him, well, why don't you and the boys come up with a meeting place? And then you'll know where they are, and they can come back and find you, or they can also meet you there, and then they can tell you where they're going. And you may not get to where they're going as fast as they do, but at least if you know where they're going, you can get there under your own steam. So they started doing it. So it became from a place to meet to a club now. I can't see how they could be any more inclusive. We have a formal meeting, you know, with the players, so to speak, his present teacher, ourselves, the visual itinerant teacher, and the principal. And that's usually in the spring of the year in preparation for the following school year. But throughout the school year, we're in close contact with his visual itinerant and his homeroom teacher to keep up to speed on what's going on and if we have any concerns. There isn't an activity that goes on there that Adam doesn't have some role to play. From the frontline employee point of view, those guys are including him in everything they can possibly include him in.
Often children think that it's pretty easy to be a blind kid. When we do a white cane session or we do a classroom presentation, we're aiming at a couple of things. One is that we want the children to see that there's no mystique with being visually impaired or blind, that it is something that happens to some people. The other thing we want them to do is to have a little bit more awareness of what it's like to be visually impaired and how people must work as a visually impaired person.
Remember, the idea is not to peek. Over here. And sometimes people can figure out the thing and look out the bottom, but that takes all the fun out of it. Next one. Who's going to be blind?
I think I'll be blind.
You think you'll be blind? Okay.
Because the thing is, I'm already visually impaired.
Well, I'll tell you what. After a while, you'll get to try totally blind instead of visually impaired. Who's going to be blind?
That would be as close as we come to sort of sensitivity training. Is, you know, this is not as easy as it looks.
You're the person who can see. You lead the others.
Okay, you've got to be careful with your people.
There's your chair, Adam. Is your backpack all ready for home, Adam? Stand very quiet, please. climb.
His giftedness affects him from time to time. Sometimes puts him on a different playing field, so to speak, but not as much as his visual impairment. Because right now I think that he's at a time in his life where physical activity is more important. And I mean, they're 8, 9-year-old boys, and that's not where he's able to participate. The other thing I think that's helped quite a bit is them coming over here after school on Thursdays and Fridays, because they come over to hang out, and he's got an opportunity to develop his own circle of friends.
Adam is a very self-confident child, and I think part of that is his basic personality. He's been given a lot of opportunities to test his limits. He's a child that tests his limits anyway, and I think his self-confidence has developed as he's been allowed to test and allowed to experiment.
My guy's so good. Next one's from half. Nick? He's been with us since first grade. Nick, how can you quit it? I never quit it. It says game over. It said credits soon. He doesn't laugh or poke fun or anything like that because I'm visually impaired. Nick gave me a guide. He wears clear glasses like me. He must be visually impaired. Well, so, we're gonna go freeze.
Adam has always had an interest in music, always been drawn to it, even as an infant. And we sort of felt that this was something he could get into, because we just felt that he was never going to be sports orientated. It was just physically impossible. So we wanted him to be able to do something for himself. And so just feel that there should be something, every kid should be able to do something. Down, put it down right here, where my hand is. See where my hand is? Yeah. Right here. That's going to be tipped over and put on. So you want to do I've always been very involved. I always say that I never found my vocal cords until after Adam was born, and now I can't seem to keep them quiet.
I think we're going to put those over there because we need to put this guy next to his facts, don't we? What?
Can't stress enough that parents need to be team players. They need to advocate on behalf of their child, and that teachers and anybody for that matter who come in contact with anybody with any sort of disability really have to look beyond the disability. Really have to look at who it is they're talking about. Look at the package. What can this person accomplish? Not this person has so they can't, or this person has so they can. Look at the whole package. What are you getting? And once you open the package, I think you'll find what's inside is really nice to be with.